Yeah, it takes a while. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back. Ready for round two. Thank you, Small Town Cowboy, for logging in. And yeah, please share this out. I'm gonna grab the link here and just chill. So yeah, while we wait for more people to stream in, so we can finish this conversation. I mean, how does it feel? So let's just casualize things up a little bit here.
Yeah, for sure.
Corey, by the way, is having internet problems, and this is one of my favorite things about Corey. He's like, "Sorry guys, I could only hear one out of every 5 words," and then the next message, shit, did I just dump the whole thing? So maybe, we're not sure. There's no blame here. But somebody hit the end broadcast button, and it could have been me too, but I didn't. Yeah, it's not the first time we've done this before. So, but yeah, like I said earlier, you took a little bit of a
siesta.
Sorry. Yeah, right. A siesta. But how does it feel? Like you took a break. I mean, you were getting not to call you out or anything, but you were getting a little bit heated. I think you were getting a little bit stressed out with the EOS.io. Now you've moved into this Ramp.Network, which is more overall crypto focused, right? That's dealing with a plethora of blockchains. How does it feel to be in that situation as opposed to quartered into a corner per se? Does it make you feel a lot more positive about the industry, or a lot more busy, or there's a lot more going on, or yeah.
Well, I've always been positive about the industry. I don't think crypto's going anywhere. Ever since I got into it since 2013, it's only been growing and growing at an exponential rate. So I'm always optimistic about that. EOS.io, it's a little bit more of a it's a bit more hard to say. I've been following news on it as well. People still send me stories. I've been following about the development of Eden, Bolus Exchange. So I'm still keeping up on the news. I hope. I mean, I've been in the EOS community for so long. I still talk to different project founders. I still, help them out whenever I can. So it's a mixed bag when it comes to EOS for me. As for working Ramp, it's great. Get to work with a lot of interesting projects, great people. So no complaints at Ramp whatsoever.
Yeah, and Orion says every chain will have its growing pains. I think that's true, right? So those of you that are in the Uplift World Telegram channel might have seen today that I actually posted a link to the new Loop, marketplace token, whatever, which used to be the old Tribe, which is kind of how you and I met, Jack, because we started out by doing our first kind of, I guess our first YouTube video, looking at all the social things in the EOS.io space, which is kind of interesting that we kind of ended up here diverging from that and doing some things that are totally different, right?
Speaking of Tribe and Loop, I actually got contacted with Tom again. So I can't say anything because nothing is on paper yet. But we're doing something together.
Oh, nice! That's great. Yeah, that's exciting. That's great.
It was curious for me as well because it's like you said, it's running into people in the same people again in the industry, working on different projects. It used to be Tribe and discussions, now it's Loop and Ramp.Network. It's definitely an interesting experience for sure.
Right. Yeah. And we all learn things, right? It's Corey and I and the rest of the team, a couple of weeks ago, or I don't even know how many weeks ago now, people were coming down on us because they were all upset about this or that or the other. And we just basically got to the point where we were just we changed because we want to make this industry better, right? If there's no point in changing, if there's no point in porting, right? What we think might work might not always work. And when it doesn't work, what can you do? You can either, run away, or you come back to the table with something better, stronger. Unfortunately, for crypto, there is a human element there, and it does take time to like actually build that and fix that and come back in, right? Which is funny because blockchain is supposed to take the human element out of it. But when you have things like regulations and taxes and onboarding and being able to like move money across borders and things like that, it's kind of nuts. So.
I just want to add to that as well. It's not like we live in a static world of 2008 where it's Bitcoin versus the banks. The banks has evolved as well. They've been devoting resource into doing blockchain. So many banks. I think the European Union just the other day green light the work to begin on a digital euro based on the blockchain technology. So and that's one of the reasons why I think Ramp.Network has a very exciting future, because we're not just providing, the way I see it, and also in our technical development, we're not just providing the fiat on-ramp into the blockchain space. We're actually connecting the backend infrastructure of a lot of banks to the blockchain space. So like there's this thing called open banking in Europe, where all the banks there's now an EU mandate where all the banks have to kind of open up their database for third-party financial service providers. And we are a financial service provider, and we're now tapping into that ecosystem and into that infrastructure and connecting it with decentralized finance. We're taking traditional finance and we're bridging that gap from traditional finance to decentralized finance.
Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of laughing because I'm just recalling a conversation I had with my mate a couple nights ago. We were sitting on the river, having a chicken on rice kind of dinner from a takeout place, and having a drink and just chatting about it. We kind of got into crypto around the same time, just before the bottom fell out of it in 2018, I guess. And it's funny, like we were thinking about like how silly we were, right, at that time, and all of the mistakes that we had like made because we thought that we were smart. And it just like what you're saying takes me back to that, because I think that goes as an industry standard as a whole, right? Like all of these people at one point in time, a couple years ago or even a couple months ago thought something way different, right? Like look at how many like Ethereum killers there were that never really materialized, compare that to how many times Ethereum has said 2.0 is coming. It's an interesting world that we live in, right? And like all of these, regulations and projects saying, okay, we're going to make crypto easy. We're going to make it foolproof. We're going to enable people to like mass adopt it. It's not really working. And probably the biggest bottleneck. There's a couple, but for me, the biggest bottleneck is actually getting your money out. It's depending upon who you are, it's not really that difficult to get your money in, especially things are getting a lot easier, right? Like a lot of these exchanges will offer with KYC, they will offer this, credit card buy-in or fiat buy-in. But the problem has always been getting your money out. So, and Ramp seems to, tackle that side of the equation as well, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, so we are beginning our work on that. Like I think I mentioned briefly, our schedule for providing off-ramp is currently looking at the end of summer. We still have some legal work's mostly done. It's actually more of the infrastructure work, because to be able to provide fiat off-ramp, you need to be able to kind of make sure that the crypto is not coming from a mixer or any kind of potentially shady origin, right? If it's stolen crypto, if it's like dark web crypto, that's something that would get us into some trouble. So we're still building up the process to make sure that area is covered before we open it up off ramping to everybody.
Right, and you can believe in decentralization all you want. You can hate the banks all you want. You can, refuse to pay taxes or say you refuse to pay taxes all you want. But it's not really that easy. They're not just going to let go of the stranglehold they have on the world. Big businesses aren't going to just roll over and say, okay, well, crypto's here. You guys do your thing now. We've had our run. It's not going to happen that way, right? They're going to push back. They're going to suppress it. And now they're at the point where they probably can't So they're going to try to, cap it and regulate it to their advantage. So, I mean, this is really important because if you don't follow these regulations, protocols like yours or projects like Ramp will get shut down and they will get fined. And that will be not only a closed door for that project, but that will actually set a precedent that kind of, derails a big movement in the industry. So I think that's really important that you guys are taking your time and doing this correctly. So.
Yeah, I think we're sort of taking the approach, Coinbase took when they were beginning. A lot of people criticize, getting listed in Coinbase wasn't the easiest thing, but they follow the regulations to a T, right? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of that we want to make sure that we keep operating 10 years from now. And you sort of saw there's kind of two ways to go about it. The way I see it, growing a crypto project, you could do what Binance does, which is grow as fast as you can, as reckless as you can, and just hope that one day you're so big that they can't take you down, right? And we're kind of seeing a little bit of backlash from the UK authority, closing down Binance's bank accounts. So there are some pushback. And then you could do the Coinbase route where we take it very conservative, make sure all our paperwork's filed in, make sure we're adhering to the relevant regulations, and just kind of build up slowly. And we're not even we're going quite quickly. Actually, we're not going slowly by any measures. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when it comes to onboarding and offboarding. Or trading, those are probably the areas that they're watching the most, because that's probably where the most amount of money is in existence. So. But yeah, so on the screen, you can see that we have your site up here, the Ramp site. And I mean, you guys are supporting, it looks like, quite a big area. My stuff loads here. Sorry, my computer as well as you've got a long list. I mean, I'm not really sure what countries are not supported. I'm guessing North Korea is not. I'm guessing maybe some of these countries that have
we don't support very backward states like Hawaii and Nebraska and New York, because those are just savage places.
I'm so surprised. I understand the sarcasm in your voice there, but Hawaii kind of surprises me because they're quite progressive.
Yeah.
So New York makes sense to me, right? Because New York is. Corey pointed this out a couple weeks ago, right? It's funny how New York is world famous for being, the financial hub of the world, essentially, right? But yet they're basically trying to stomp out crypto the hardest. But ironically enough, they're part of a country where each state essentially gets to make their own financial and economic rules, which doesn't really bode well for the situation that they're in. So I think that's really funny. But I don't know if you even know, but what's Nebraska, I don't know. I guess that makes sense to me. If I had to pick one other country other than, New York to not fit, and somebody told me Nebraska, I wouldn't be surprised. But Hawaii, I'm kind of surprised. What's up with Hawaii? Because I know we have a few members that follow us that are Hawaiian. So I might take this fight myself.
I'm not sure what the exact details are for Hawaii and Nebraska. But as a New Yorker, I definitely, I think you already mentioned New York. I lived in New York I discovered I discovered Bitcoin in New York, right next to this New York Stock Exchange. That's kind of how I got into it in the first place. So it is strange that I think it's maybe a combination of wanting to protect their turf, put it in New York terms. Because these DEX and decentralized exchanges, crypto exchanges, are getting so big that they rival these traditional stock exchanges. We at that point, maybe they saw early on this is going to be a problem, and therefore they impose very strict capital restrictions. But also New York City and New York in general is a very democratic state, so you tend to have a lot more regulations regarding financial entities. So. It is what it is. We are working on, enabling access to those states. It's not that we have given up. It's just gonna take a little bit longer. Last I checked, I think only 12 entities, including Coinbase, have the bit license that New York requires to operate anything related to cryptocurrency in the state. So it's not a fast process by any means, but we're getting there.
It's kind of like this, buy into, citizenship type of thing that's going around the world recently, right? Like I think, for a measly, $90,000, you can buy citizenship into Malaysia. For a measly, like, $200,000, you're able to, buy your way into New Zealand, for example. Kind of seems like that's the route of crypto monetization by big companies in New York to me, actually, which I think is kind of ironic.
Yeah. So
again, I'm just one guy. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the way.
No. Fun little fact is that the guy who wrote the bit license requirement actually was a former head of legal at Coinbase. So essentially, he left Coinbase, wrote the regulations. Coinbase, I think, was the second business. I think Ripple was actually the first to get the license, which is another interesting tidbit of information. But that just shows you, how closely related the people who are regulating the industry and the people who are running the industry are.
Well, I remember even the Winklevoss twins, they had a hard time getting in there, and like they're very well connected, right? Like they've got the funds to do what they want, and so I just thought that was really interesting. So, all right, but let's go through this. I'm not actually going to set it up, but right now you guys support 5 different currencies, and you're adding some new ones.
No, we support many more.
Okay,
just those are the 5 we showcase. Yeah.
So if
you click on buy now.
Yeah,
it should actually show you. You can see a drop down of all the available assets. So the few that we recently added support for is Terra UST. So that's a very popular stable coin. I think it's the 5th most popular stable coin in all of crypto at the moment. Just below USDC, USDT, and Binance, the Binance stable coin, as well as a lot of layer 2 solutions. So we support for Polygon Polygon, we support USDC, we support DAI, Matic, of course, and the Wrap ETH token. So
okay. So mostly it looks like the fiats that you support are only USD and euros. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So so those are kind of the currencies we operate in, where we actually do some conversions from the local bank to USD, and then use that USD conversion for the cryptocurrency exchange. So that's the rate we use, because again, like almost all of crypto is denominated in USD.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, it's a pretty good list here. All right, let's walk through this process then. Again, I'm not going to set the whole thing up, but basically, let's go back. So obviously, to be regulatory compliant, you're going to need to probably provide some KYC or some information about yourself. I'm guessing.
Yes. Well, it depends on the amount you purchase. So if you're doing very small amounts, like anywhere from 100 euros downwards, there is no KYC, or at least there's not a good chance of KYC. It depends. Our KYC mechanism gets triggered depending on a lot of different criterias. But one of them is you're randomly selected for KYC, just so we make sure that the system is working functional and people are not kind of bypassing the system. It also depends on your geographic location, where right now in some Southeast Asia countries, we are seeing a high level, we're seeing elevated level of risk. So for those regions, we might impose the KYC check more frequently. So there's a lot of things that go into what will require KYC, but for most users in most regions, small amounts of crypto would not trigger the KYC process. It's only when you are trying to do like 500 euros worth of transaction or 1,000 euros that that will pop up.
Okay. And so, yeah, and you guys support, looks like it says open banking rails that you can use direct API to your bank. So that's, I guess, like direct deposit or transfer from your bank account into Ramp and vice versa. Is that how that works?
Yeah, so this is the very unique option that we have for Europe. And, you know, America, they're doing the same thing. In the United States, is trying to like implement a similar system where the government mandates the banks have to open up their infrastructure to third-party service providers. In EU, what we could do is tap directly into the bank's API to do what's called pull request. So we kind of verify your identity, do that that way. So actually, with the open banking system, we could offer a lot higher limits before the KYC check kicks in. So yeah, so that will connect to, like, if you're a very popular financial app would be like Revolut, we could initiate a transaction directly in your Revolut application. So you just got to put in your PIN or whatever, and then that transaction is processed. And that's actually one of the cheapest options. I think we charge just 0.49% for that transaction, which is the lowest in the industry, just because that infrastructure is so well built. And you could process, it so much more efficiently, and you don't have to incur the cost of KYC for that transaction.
Yeah, and that does seem really low compared to the I mean, it seems high, but it seems really low compared to the industry standard, right? Like a lot of places charge a lot more than that. So very cool. Yeah, and of course, you have other means as well. Some common, some not so common. Visa, MasterCard, Apple Pay requires basic KYC. And SEPA. So that's good to see. There's a lot of options here. And you guys are supporting Android. You're supporting iOS, which is kind of big, actually, because it's not often that projects like this can get verification to support iOS. If I'm honest about it, it seems like a lot of these projects kind of get stopped at the gate for some reason. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, very interesting. Was there? I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole process here online. I mean, unless I guess I could open an account, and all of you, amazing people that watch this now and later could send hundreds of thousands of dollars to my personal account. That would be really cool. But yeah, let's just pretend that I don't need that money. And even if I got it, I would just donate it all to good causes. But yeah, I guess, is there anything else that you want to maybe tell us about that's kind of special about what you guys are doing, or what you guys have planned, or what's coming up?
Yeah, I think the most exciting things we're working on right now is kind of expanding into this NFT ecosystem. I know, Uplift Nation is doing a lot of work in the NFT space. We are looking to bring support to ESIO. We're still working on finding a partner in this space. So if you know anybody, do connect us. But yeah, NFT is a huge deal for us. Like I said, Axie Infinity is putting us to work. So Rare is another huge project. There's a number of other big projects, some you do know, that we're working with in the background. We recently got a round of investments from Dapper Labs. So Dapper Labs is the one behind NBA Top Shot. So obviously NBA Top Shot is one of the most popular NFT projects there is, doing something like crazy, like $500 million in volume since inception. So we are working, they invested in Ramp, and we're working to kind of bring support to that ecosystem, to their Flow blockchain, which is their custom blockchain for NFTs. So a lot of exciting stuff happening in NFT space, but for me, I have a soft spot for DeFi projects. So I'm working with a lot of different DeFi projects as well. One of our biggest partners is actually Aave, which is the huge DeFi project behind on Ethereum. They moved to Polygon layer 2 solution, and we kind of added support. We added support for them for that as well. So a lot of exciting work in the NFT space, a lot of exciting work in the Ethereum layer 2 space as well.
Right. So actually, I didn't realize that they moved to Polygon. That must be, was that recently? I didn't know that.
They didn't move. They expanded support.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right. Yeah. So I get a little bit like there's too much to follow in this space, and I think that's one area where traders might actually have an advantage over, those that hodl, is sometimes you hodl things and people forget about them, and then you wake up in the morning and they're gone. It's kind of sometimes drives me crazy. Zilliquid did that, and I kind of screwed up and I wasn't paying attention. So a word of advice for things that you're hodling, don't hodl more than you can afford to lose.
So give me an update on what's been going on with Uplift Nation and you guys and EOS.io. I mean, I've been keeping a tab, but I haven't been pouring over Twitter like I used to.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on. So Uplift Nation is no more. I mean, it is. It's more than it was, in the sense that it kind of ported into Uplift Art. So what we were doing with Uplift Nation, for those of you that might not know, is we were looking at putting charity on the blockchain, and we came up with a plethora of issues, most having to do with regulatory compliance, especially in the US, and also funding. And in order to run like a nonprofit charity, a lot of rules and stigmas are attached to it. And so MBlue kind of came up with this new model, this new idea, after consulting, some of the biggest charitable for-profit donors in the world. As bad as that sounds, kind of the general idea is, if you're a charity and you're raising, $15,000, $20,000 a year for these projects because you're a registered, NPO and you're paying base salaries, what kind of talent are you going to attract? And so if you look at, what most of these people who donate money are able to do for the world, and the amount that they're able to donate, they're better off keeping their, high profile CEO or CTO jobs and donating that money and then minusing that off their taxes. It actually works out better for them, and the charitable organizations get more. So the idea was, well, what if we create this new kind of like win-win-win model, whereby we can enable and empower artists and musicians to be able to do stuff. And so essentially, MBlue created the first music video on the blockchain by Bitcoin Bull in the midst of the lockdown, which is kind of pretty interesting. And Corey, found it, and he decided to make I'm Not the Bubble, which is a revamped version of that. MBlue did the art for that as well. And basically, Uplift Art was kind of born and taken to the next level. Around about the same time, Corey had this idea in his head that the server he was playing with some of his friends on could actually be blockchainable, in terms of creating a metaverse based off of Minecraft. So MBlue really liked the idea, and it kind of got added to the Uplift family. For most of the people in the audience or who watch our show, you kind of know how that ended. Basically we were able to take those two projects and create like a ton of value externally for a ton of great projects, right? Like we were able to donate a whole bunch of money to a food sustainability lunch program in Haiti. We raised money through auctions to be able to, our goal this year is to build a school. We also attracted the attention of Yoshi, who, according to an interview we had last week with Bangout, who happens to be one of the most well-renowned music producers probably in the world, working with some top artists. Yoshi might potentially be the best kept secret in all of New York when it comes to the music industry. He decided that, feeding children and building schools wasn't really enough for him. He really liked the idea of Wax, and Wax being essentially a carbon neutral blockchain. And he decided that he wanted to do something better with his life. And he started Yoshi Drops as a mechanism to procure art and music that the rights are kind of held by the creators, which isn't always necessarily an industry standard. Now, like, don't get me wrong, there are, industry leaders or big corporations that do create that art and pay other people. So they're not necessarily always going to be cut out, but it's going to, level the playing field in a lot of respects, and give, musicians and bands kind of better negotiating power to do what they want to do, and also ownership to their music. And in the process of that, the plan is by 2023 to be able to plant 2 million trees through partnerships with carbonfund.org mainly. We're also working on a partnership with GenerEOS, which is also going to do some environmental restoration and replanting of trees in Australia as well. And we're just kind of deciding, what direction it's going to take now. Of course, we're kind of in the Binance mode of thought where we build stuff because this has never been done before. And sometimes we have to look at it and be like, okay, well, this isn't really sustainable. This isn't working the way that we thought, which is often the case when it comes to DeFi or NFTs or some of these like new burgeoning technologies. You don't necessarily always know what's going to come out of it until you get there and you get in the mix, right? So yeah, I think you're caught up now.
I think so, yeah. But it's yeah. I mean, I've been absent for a little. We go way back, and I've been absent for a little bit while ever since I left discussions. So it's great to be caught up on what's been going on. It's great to have you guys who are still paying very close attention to the space and the different ESIO blockchains. Yeah, it's a fantastic source. You guys are a fantastic source of information. So.
Oh, that's great. I like it, right? Like and I like our community too, because we're on a bit of a bizarre time, right? Like we're on at 9 a.m. usually, Eastern Standard Time, which is probably like the worst time for live viewership in the world, right? I mean, like people in the Midwest are just maybe starting to wake up. Maybe they're on their way to work. People on the West Coast are still sleeping, probably when they wake up. They got things to do. People on the East Coast are just starting their jobs. It's pretty good for European time, actually, if I'm honest, because it's
it's a pretty fantastic time. Yeah.
And I mean, Japan, it's 10 p.m. here, so parts of Australia might be okay as well, but it's still kind of late. But yeah, I really appreciate that because, as you know, you were kind of both Corey and my avenue into a lot of this podcasting, YouTube stuff that we do. So thank you for that and for the motivation and bringing us into the fray of being able to provide useful knowledge. I really appreciate that, Jack.
Yeah, no, not at all. I just pointed the way you guys walk the path, so so to speak.
Edward is in the comments, a few other people in the comments too, but shout out to Edward. Edward's got shaken up a little bit. He is getting better, I presume he's tuned in. So welcome back. I hope that you're that you continue to feel better, Edward. A couple questions that maybe we can address. How functional is Ramp for U.S. citizens? I mean, I'm assuming it is because you accept USD, but I mean, there's always that question that can be asked, right?
Yeah, so for the US, we're doing as much as we can. We do have the amount of assets we support for US is a bit limited, just because like the strict regulations in the US. So we support Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Polkadot. So and then I think there's one more. So the asset pool is a bit limited. So a lot of more interesting assets like Dogecoin and God forbid Ripple is not available in the US, but that's sort of how things are.
That's why Corey's not here and why he ended the stream. You know that, right? He was scrolling through the website and he saw Ripple. He's like, damn it, I'm out. And you guys are out too. You're gone. So depending upon the country, will depend on the assets that you can acquire.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. And I guess that makes sense, right? Like if you're at the point of being deemed a security in certain regions, then it might be better for you guys.
Especially in the U.S.
Right.
Especially in the U.S. The U.S. has been, it's one of the biggest markets in the world, but it's also one of the most complicated markets to operate in. We have lawyered up to the teeth, but right now, so has everybody else. But it's the cost of doing business in the U.S., just like the fees, the legal fees, as well as the delay, in the regulations. But I think there's still a huge potential. I think U.S. is sort of falling behind a bit in terms of not allowing cryptocurrency companies to operate. Obviously, they have Coinbase, but that's sort of kind of almost creating a monopoly via regulation. So.
Right. And I mean, like even Binance, US is quite a lot different from what the regular Binance is from everything that I can see, right? So
yeah.
I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before the regulations suss themselves out. And when that happens, I think that you'll see a lot of these projects that have struggled really hard in the US gain kind of, better profits, expansion globally, worldwide, more adoption, maybe. It's kind of my guess. But so credit cards.
It's possible. So it's supported, but again, for the limited assets, in the US, we offer Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, DAI, multi-collateral DAI, Polkadot Litecoin, USDC on Ethereum, and also USDT. So those are those sort of your top 10 cryptocurrencies that you could purchase through, bank transfers as well as credit cards.
On a side note, Corey and I decided last week, I think it might have been the week before, that we were going to do a live show of us getting inducted into Eden on EOS, which is really difficult because, we like to crack jokes. So it's like,
are they not fun like that?
No, they were pretty good. I just kind of felt bad. We should be a little bit more serious. But I participated in the second.
That was Saturday, right? That was
public election. Yeah, and it was super late. It was like, it's probably why I'm a little bit under the weather today, honestly. Like, it was I was 2:00 in the morning, and there were a few complications. There's some things that I would like to see changed. Actually, I'm just kind of addressing Morton's comment. I didn't. I got
the invite link to the Zoom as well, but I was busy following up on other stuff that I didn't intend.
Right. Yeah. And I think a few people were like that. I think so. I wanted to ask you I guess I have my answer. If you were a member, and how this all kind of pans out. Because I thought from my perspective, there were a lot of people that I know that weren't actually able to attend, putting it on a Saturday morning at noon. That's kind of you're kind of stacking the deck against family people in a way, right? And no offense to anyone who made time, because I'm sure there were plenty of people that did. And I know I didn't even want to join. I was like, oh, I'm too busy to join. I can't do this. And I had a plethora of people. A number of people asked me, and I was just like, no. And they said, why do you want to join? And I said, oh, I can see myself being in a room where I just have to go forward, and I don't want to. And I don't like to do things half-assed. I feel kind of bad or guilty about doing things half-assed. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it. And I actually do believe that it's a good protocol, once they get all the things ironed out. But it was quite interesting. We're going to have a roundtable on the Crypto Writer channel this week.
Who ended up winning the elections for the weekend?
Yeah, so I guess the final round was in part decided by not necessarily all people voting. Like there was a interesting little tweak in there, but the top prize ended up going to Amy Haynes of DApp Solutions, and I believe block producer in Israel, which is kind of nice, And he's planning.
Are they also the one behind? There's a DeFi project, eCurve, I think. Were they the same group?
I'm not sure about that. I'd have to verify it, but it does sound a little bit familiar, actually. I know he's doing a lot of things in the space. And Chris Barnes as well. He represented for a second time. He got the I guess the second place. And he basically stated that he wanted to do with the prize the 100, I think the 100, or I can't remember, but I think it was 100 EOS that he got was more than enough. And Amy actually is wanting to work on onboarding for EOS. So there's my hint for you for the day. You should definitely reach out to Amy because I know you know him. There could be something there between Ramp and what he's thinking about doing with the onboarding. So, but yeah, I think that it was interesting for me because I ended up in the exact situation that I didn't want to be in. John, a mutual friend of ours, kind of convinced us that, Jimmy, you should do it because it's important. And if you don't want to move on, you don't have to. But I ended up in a group that nobody wanted to move on. And there was actually only 3 because there were some issues with somebody dropping out of the Zoom, and we don't know who. Maybe they had connectivity issues or something when the breakout rooms were created. And finally, we talked for a few minutes, and finally, Corey and I kind of had this idea that we thought was fun, but we weren't really going to do anything with it. And finally, about halfway through the meeting, I was just like, you know what, fuck it, I'll just do it. Fuck it, if you guys want to vote for me, I'll do it. It took a while to explain because there was a really nice person with us that had we really had to simplify our English with, which was quite interesting as well. Yeah, so I decided that I would just say screw it.
I never thought about that. I guess you would have an advantage if you spoke multiple languages, and if it's if it's a more diverse language-wise.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think the end goal for doing this is to actually expand to other regions of the world, so that China will be able to have their own. For example, the Australians will be able to have their own because nobody understands Australian English, obviously. But yeah, I ended up moving on, and then I couldn't move on. Just to address Morton's comment above, because nobody recorded it, and it all has to be recorded. So I was kind of okay with that because I shut her down and went to bed because I was really tired anyway. I got a little bit of gruff for that because I said I didn't want to move on, and they were giving me a hard time. They're like, "Oh, you got to look after your daughter." Ooh. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, kinda. She's 1.5, and she likes to eat shit. And she, it could be a problem." But yeah, but I think it'd be interesting to see what happens with the next trial. So I'd like to get them to change it so that more people like you, Corey, Sean, Belant, none of those guys actually were able to participate, or you guys were able to participate. So I think it would be interesting because when you can mix things like what you guys are doing with Ramp, this is why I'm thinking about it mostly. When you can mix things with what you guys are doing with Ramp in an echo chamber that has become EOS, but let's face it, the biggest problem with EOS right now by far is onboarding. I don't know if 2,500 wax can fix EOS onboarding. Right? If Block One hasn't been able to do it with their funds, I'm kind of throwing shade there that maybe they don't deserve. But anyway, or maybe they do deserve it. I don't know. But if you haven't been able to fix it for that, I don't really know how this is going to help. But I think part of the problem is the echo chamber that we live in, and so the fact that a platform like Ramp does want to go in there and does want to list that token, that's big, right? Because you and me in particular, how many times have we criticized Binance for not supporting EOS tokens, EOS projects, right? So I guess that leads to my question. It seems like you guys are mostly focused on the big boys, which makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you got to focus. But are you guys also, obviously, I'm sure you'd probably be interested in listing EOS, Wax, Telos, Ultra, which is still on 2 chains anyway. But are you guys interested in listing smaller projects like DApp or Boyd or any of these other projects? What are the limits for what you guys are willing to support? I guess there's probably some consideration about liquidity, some consideration about token distribution. Do you want to maybe walk us through that? Because there might be some people out there in EOSIO projects that might be wanting to reach out to you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we work with a lot of different projects. Obviously, we do have, as a business, we do have to prioritize those projects that are likely going to be more profitable for us. But that doesn't mean that each one of our team members don't have their preferred blockchain of choice. You know, we're all crypto nerds. You know, we all have our interests in different blockchains, and you know, for me, it's ESIO. You know, I have a soft spot. I have a love-hate relationship with the ESIO ecosystem.
Right.
So it's not that, you know, it's not so much of whether or not we want to support it, it's whether or not we have a partner to help us support this ecosystem, because there are going to be costs that we need to that needs to be shared, right, in order for this partnership to happen, especially legal costs. So, you know, it's I mean, let's be blunt. Operating in the EOS ecosystem is not always the easiest to get a hold of people who can kind of make these kind of decisions, for better or worse. So it's been difficult. It's not that it hasn't been for a lack of trying that, you know, we don't support EOS and ESIO, but it has been a little bit tricky getting in touch with the right people.
I mean, I'm what I'm most excited about actually is if you guys can pull off listing Wax, because you know what the Wax Cloud wallet does is great, but for some reason they keep blocking my credit card. Those you know, options that they allow.
Yeah,
I guess my credit card keeps blocking them, and I guess they could probably call and get them to fix that, but it's just. Seems like too much of a hassle. As silly as that sounds, it's like I already verified myself, right? Like all of this stuff is already done, and it's just like, you know, if Visa wants to keep blocking it, then I'll just find another avenue in, which usually involves me, you know, selling something that's going up. But I think that would be really cool if they could have another option there with Ramp.Network. So I really hope anyone listening from, you know, Wax or the Wax Council gets in touch with Jack, because I think that would be a really good partnership. And I realize, you know, we want to see you know, the Wax Cloud wallet succeed. I realize that it's perfect, but like maybe we could even implement Ramp into that, because that's, in my opinion, the biggest downfall of Ethereum. Not necessarily that there aren't others. I mean, obviously cost, obviously, you know, the ability to front run DeFi is big in my mind, because I want a fair playing field. But for me, it's just the fact that like we seem to be unwilling to release the stranglehold of, you know, the market that we have, and that's really the world that we're coming from. And I think that we can do much better. So.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with this as well. EOS is special and understood fully. I left the space, came back for Wax. It's difficult, right? Because we sat in EOS and we waited for EOS to do things, and some of those things are maybe just starting to come to fruition now. Maybe, you know, some negative things had to happen for the wheel to be turned straight, so to speak. But when we look at things like Wax or Ultra, especially, even Telos, right? I know, Jack, I think you're a fan of Telos. I don't know that much about it. I never got embedded in that ecosystem so much myself, but like, you know, they're bridging out, they're going to Binance, you know, they're bridging the Ether directly, right? Like the EOSIO technology.
Their AVM, so yeah, they're doing a lot of great work.
Yeah, and that I think is what's going to shine through. But I know, right? I mean, I wish you could just jump through a hoop. It's like wear brightly colored diamond shoes and walk up to a bank machine and you know, order Wax wirelessly from your brain while jumping up and down and clicking your heels 3 times like Dorothy. Wouldn't the world be a lot better place if that was all that you had to endure?
Can't promise that with Ramp, but probably something a little bit simpler.
Right. Okay. Let me see if I can pull up the game. I think it's been a while since we put. I think it's been a while since we put.
Actually, Jimmy, I have something in 5 minutes, so I'm gonna have to call it quit soon.
I think I can do this in 5 minutes. And if I can't, it's okay. I'll take it down now. What are you grateful for today, Jack?
New work, new direction. New apartment. So
I thought something looked kind of spicy there. Actually, you know what? I'll just put it up after the show. It's okay. We can do it that way. But yeah, I didn't realized that you had changed, white buildings and all. So yeah, I'm grateful to reconnect with you, Jack. It's been a long time. We've kept in touch a little bit, but we've both been off doing our random things. But you're actually in my thoughts more than you might even like. Just from what I was saying before. About getting into the space and having those connections with you and learning so much. So I'm grateful to be able to reconnect with my good friend Jacques Whales, and for your success. Let's see. You got 3 minutes. If you got 3 minutes, and my computer doesn't die, we can do this. There we go, and done. All right. All right. Jack is, C.
C.
Grateful for new directions. Did you say new directions and new opportunities?
Yeah. New work, make it a little shorter maybe. I'm not sure you can fit everything on there.
That works. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. And let's see, Jimmy. Jackist. There we go, and done. And that's it. Please don't be a stranger. Please come back and give us an update on all things Jack, and also all things Ramp as well. So for all of you who tuned in, thanks so much for joining us through all the pleasures and the pains. And we'll see you guys next time. I usually don't do this myself, but